Drink more water. How many times have you heard this phrase, noted and promised yourself to do it later? But why do we actually need it? What exactly happens in the body and in the skin when we do? And can a simple glass of water really change your face? That's exactly what we're going to figure out today. I'm a certified face fitness trainer and an expert in natural facial rejuvenation. And today we'll talk about the intersection of two fundamental topics, water and facial beauty. Why we need water at all? Let's start with the foundation, because without it, everything that follows simply doesn't make sense. The human body is indeed made up of approximately 60–70% of water. This percentage varies depending on age, body composition and muscle mass. And here is a key point. The highest concentrations of water are found in muscles and skin, the very tissue that directly shape the appearance of the face. And for a cell, water is not just a liquid. It is the working environment in which life is possible at all. Without water, a cell cannot function properly. Every cell needs water for four key purposes. First, for metabolism. All chemical reactions that allow a cell to produce energy, renew itself and perform its functions take place in an aqueous environment. Second, water is necessary for the transport of nutrients. Glucose, amino acids, vitamins and minerals are delivered to cells through blood and intercellular fluid, both of which are largely composed of water. Third, water is involved in the removal of metabolic waste products. Cells constantly generate byproducts of their activity, and if these are not removed efficiently, tissues begin to function less effectively. This directly affects skin quality and muscle tone. And finally, thermoregulation. The face is an area with very active blood circulation, and maintaining a stable temperature here is critical. Water helps preserve normal conditions for the functioning of blood vessels and the nervous system. And why does all of this show up on the face so quickly? Because the face is an area of highly sensitivity. Thin skin, a dense network of blood vessels, many small muscles, constant facial expressions, even minor shifts in internal balance are reflected in the face earlier than in the body as a whole. And to understand how water affects the appearance of the face, it's important first to understand how the skin functions under normal conditions. The skin is the largest organ of the human body, and its condition always reflects internal processes. The appearance of facial skin is influenced simultaneously by three interconnected systems: tissue hydration, blood and lymph circulation, and condition of muscles and subcutaneous fat tissue. All of these levels are directly dependent on water. When the body receives water regularly and in sufficient amounts, it is disturbed between cells and intercellular space and the bloodstream. In this environment, skin cells function in a normal mode. Metabolic reactions proceed at a proper rate, nutrients are delivered on time, and metabolic waste products are efficiently removed. In this state, the skin looks denser, more elastic, and more filled. However, it is important to understand that the skin is not a priority organ from the standpoint of survival. And this is where the most interesting part begins. When less water enters the body that it needs, the body does not suffer evenly. Instead, it begins to redistribute water according to priorities. First, water is directed to vital organs, the brain, heart, liver, and kidneys. This is logical. Without their proper functioning, survival is impossible. The skin, facial muscles, and fascia, on the other hand, shift into a mode of residual supply. With chronic mild dehydration, which is the most common scenario in real life, cells do not die. They change their mode of operation. If we use an analogy, it is like a city where resources arrive less frequently. Waste removal slows down, internal logistics works less efficiently. In the skin, this manifests in several characteristic ways. First, hydration in the epidermis and dermis decreases. The skin loses its internal pressure, its turgor. It becomes less resistant to folding and breaks down more quickly in areas of active facial expressions. Second, the transport of nutrition worsens. Even if nutrition and skincare are adequate, delivery to the cells become less efficient, especially in peripheral areas, and the face belongs precisely to such areas. Third, the removal of metabolic byproducts slows down. This affects skin tone, texture, and the overall impression of a tired appearance. And this is important. Dehydrated skin does not always look dry. Sometimes it may appear normal or even oily, but at the same time it loses quality, density, and freshness, and swelling begins to appear. And many people think that more water means more swelling. In reality, a lack of water can lead to swelling more often than adequate hydration. When the body senses a shortage of fluid, it activates a protective mode and begins to retain water. This retention often manifests as swelling in the face. Studies show that normalizing water intake helps reduce facial swelling and improves facial contours. So up to this point, we have mainly talked about the skin. But the shape is not just skin. Beneath it lies a complex system of facial muscles, and it is these muscles that largely shape the facial contour, volume, and expression. That's why the influence of water on muscles is just as important as its influence on the skin. From a physiological standpoint, muscles are one of the most water-dependent tissues in the body. On average, muscle tissue contains about 75% of water, and this is not accidental. Water creates the conditions in which muscle fibers can normally contract and relax. When hydration levels decrease, muscles do not dry out, but they begin to function in a less favorable environment. Blood circulation becomes less efficient, the delivery of oxygen and nutrients slows down, and metabolic byproducts of muscle work are removed more poorly. As a result, the overall quality of muscle function changes. At the level of the face, this manifests quite characteristically. Facial muscles fatigue faster, relax more poorly after contraction, and enter a state of chronic tension more easily. This is why, with insufficient water intake, the face may look not so much sluggish as tight and overcontracted, with a tense over face, overloaded jaw area, and pronounced tension in the brow. And for the face fitness, this is critically important. Exercises work through the cycle of muscles contraction and relaxation. But if a muscle is already functioning in a dehydrated environment, its ability to respond adequately to load is reduced. The result becomes less stable and requires more effort. With a normal water balance, the situation changes. Facial muscles respond better to training, contract more effectively, and recover faster after load. This directly affects the stability of results. The face maintains tone longer, exercises produce more predictable outcomes, and the feeling of overload after practice becomes noticeably weaker. So how much water do you actually need to drink? When the topic of water intake comes up, it's very easy to fall into extremes. Neither approach is physiologically correct. In physiology, the most commonly used reference point is an approximate formula of 30-35 milliliters of water per kilogram of body weight per day. This is not a rigid standard, but rather a starting point from which you can assess your individual needs. And it's important to understand that water requirements always vary from person to person. They depend on physical activity level, the climate you live in, dietary habits, and the presence of training, including face fitness, since working with muscles increases local blood circulation and metabolic activity. At the same time, not only the total amount of water matters, but also how it is distributed throughout the day. The body responds much better to regular intake of small amounts of water than to infrequent but large volumes. This pattern helps maintain a stable volume of blood and intercellular fluid, which is especially important for peripheral tissues, including the face. Another important point is the source of fluids. Sweetened drinks, juices, and other sugary beverages cannot fully replace water because they affect glucose levels and osmotic balance. In terms of hydration, they work differently and do not solve the task of maintaining a stable internal environment. For most people, a reasonable guideline is 30-35 milliliters of water per kilogram of body weight. If there is a physical activity or training, it makes sense to increase this amount by approximately 500 to 700 milliliters per day, distributing the water evenly throughout the day. And I also want to say a few words about coffee and tea because there is still a lot of confusion around this topic. Coffee and tea do not dehydrate the body in the way people often think. If you consume caffeine regularly, the body adapts to it and the mild diuretic effect becomes minimal. That's why coffee and tea can be counted as part of your overall fluid intake. At the same time, it is important to understand that coffee and tea are not the same as water. Caffeine stimulates the nervous system, increases cortisol levels, and places additional stress on the body. So even though you are getting fluid, this type of hydration works less effectively for tissues, especially for the skin and facial muscles, than plain water. In practical terms, this looks like the following. 1 or 2 cups of coffee or tea per day is generally fine and can be included in your fluid intake, but they should not replace water entirely. And it is important to understand that a lack of water does not always manifest as thirst. In real life, dehydration more often shows up indirectly through changes in well-being and appearance. One of the first signals is the condition of the skin. A feeling of dryness or tightness may appear even when you are using your usual skincare products. The skin may look less dense, lose freshness more quickly, and the complexion can become dull. This happens because under conditions of water deficiency, the skin stops being a priority zone of the body. Another characteristic sign is morning swelling. The body begins to retain fluid and it accumulates in the loose tissues of the face. At the level of general well-being, dehydration may manifest as a feeling of fatigue even after adequate sleep. This is associated with impaired microcirculation and reduced oxygen delivery to tissues. Headaches, especially in the second half of the day, often accompany this state. If you put all of this together, the combination of dry or tight skin, a dull complexion, swelling, and unexplained fatigue is a reason to look specifically at water balance, rather than immediately searching for external causes. There is also a simple everyday indicator that can be used. The color and volume of urine often reflect hydration status. Light, almost transparent urine usually indicates sufficient hydration, while darker color may be a sign of fluid deficiency. So, how not to forget to drink water during the day? The most common problem with water is not calculating the right amount, but simply forgetting to drink it. This is completely normal. Thirst is not a reliable indicator, and in a busy daily routine, the body often turns off the signal. That's why, when it comes to hydration, it's better to rely not on sensations, but on a system. So, the first effective principle is linking water to existing habits. It's much easier to remember to drink when water becomes part of your regular routines. For example, a glass of water after waking up, a few sips before each meal, water after fitness practice, or a walk. In this case, drinking stops being a separate task and becomes integrated into the day automatically. This second principle is the physical presence of water in your field of view. If water is far away or in another room, it's easy to forget about it. A simple bottle or glass on your desk significantly increases the likelihood that you'll drink regularly. This is not a matter of discipline, but of environment. And the third principle is convenient format. If a bottle is uncomfortable, heavy, or unpleasant to hold, you will subconsciously reach for it less often. Practice shows that one medium-sized bottle that's easy to carry works better than multiple glasses or complex system. The next principle is fractional drinking. It's much easier to take a few sips every 20-30 minutes than to remember water once every few hours and try to drink a larger volume at once. This approach feels easier for the body and becomes a habit faster. One more principle is time anchors. If your day has some structure, you can link water intake to time blocks: morning, midday, afternoon, evening. Not as a rigid timer, but as a gentle check-in: have I had water during this part of the day or not? And the last principle is not turning water into stress. Paradoxically, the more strictly a person controls, the more often they fail. Water should be support, not another reason for self-criticism. If you miss it, nothing terrible happens. You simply return to routine calmly. And in short, to stop forgetting to drink, you don't need more control. You need to make water part of your environment and daily habits. Then the drinking routine begins to maintain itself automatically, without tension or constant reminders. So, water is not a beauty tip and not a trend. It is a basic condition for the normal functioning of the skin and facial muscles. Without it, muscle tone worsens, swelling increases, and face fitness results become less stable. If you want exercises to truly work, start with something simple. Take a look at your water intake, not abruptly, without extremes, but regularly. And try this for the next 7 days. Drink water evenly throughout the day and observe how your skin and face respond, and pay attention to swelling and the sensation of muscle tone. And if this topic resonates with you, write in the comments whether it is difficult for you to maintain a drinking routine and what changes you notice or you want to notice. Please subscribe to my channel if a sufficient and mindful approach to facial works matters to you.